Hello, I think I'm live. Hello, and thank you for joining me for segment 3 of overcoming negative reactions when triggered by your mate. Now, maybe um, many of you who are listening or watching this presentation, maybe you don't get triggered by your mate. So, if that's the case, you will be able to get some insights into people who do, partners in relationship who do get triggered and when they react. This series is based on the fact that in love and marriage, that the best comes out and the worst comes out of each partner. Now, the best comes out, think about your relationship. When things are going well, the best of you tends to come out, right? And it's easy to get along. It's easy to have a good time. It's easy to have the important conversations. It's just smooth. However, when one or both parties get triggered, something different happens. And another part comes out. I call that, well, that's the reactive part. That's the part that comes out when there's some kind of threat to the connection. One person has a feeling that the other person doesn't care about what they're thinking, what they're needing, what they're feeling. And the other person, who many times says or does something in an innocent way, has a hurtful impact or a scary impact. And so what happens is when people get triggered and they go into survival mode meaning fight, flee, freeze, play dead, or hide, then nothing positive happens. There's no problem solving. There's no, if a problem can't be solved, there's no managing the problem. There's just conflict and bad feelings. The problem with people going into survival mode is that when they are there, they have tunnel vision and they can only see what's wrong with the other person. And there's blind spots to other possibilities of what is going on, including what the other person's intention is, which could possibly be positive. Now, sometimes it's negative. Sometimes, people are intentionally hurtful because when people are hurting, they become hurtful. When people are scared, sometimes they become scary. Now, the good news about this is when people get to this place, there are opportunities that they're not aware of. This is where the growth opportunities are for both partners. And the growth opportunities lead to being able to talk about the issue in a way that both people feel heard and understood, and to come up with, and sometimes just talking about it will dissolve the problem. Or sometimes change needs to happen between one or both partners to resolve the problem. And sometimes the problem is sometimes out of control of both partners. An outside influence that affects the relationship, that problem needs to be managed. And so this series is about supporting people to overcome how that knee-jerk reaction and really go into a reflective state to do one of those three things: dissolve it, resolve it, or manage it. So case study this time is about a couple that I'm calling James and Jill. Excuse me. They've been married for about 29 years, and they have a teenage daughter. And so, actually, yeah, they have a teenage daughter. And so, over the 19 years, 29 years, they have had a pretty good ride together. However, they have this one tender, sensitive area that they haven't had a chance to get on the other side of it. And so it's about boundaries. It's about, so here's the situation that represents what they've been dealing with for years. So one night after dinner, Everybody's settled in, and James and Jill, they're having time together before they get ready for bed. So one of the things that James does to relax is that he goes on his computer to he likes those games kind of on his computer. So he goes on there just for, I don't know, it's like a hobby for him. It's like the way he passes time when he has his own personal time. So he's on the computer, and he usually likes to do that like by himself. He doesn't want to have, that's not his couple time and his partnership time. That's his me time. So he's on the computer playing his game, and Jill innocently comes over and peeks over his shoulder. "What you doing?" she asked him. And that annoys him. So his reaction is, "Why are you always looking at my stuff?" I mean, he's really, really clearly upset. Now, maybe you know of someone, a couple, where one person is busy doing one thing by themselves, enjoying themselves. They doesn't mean that they don't want to be with their partner, but they want to have an activity that they do by themselves. And so, what happens was when James snapped at Jill, she got really upset, and her interpretation was that he didn't care about her because her belief system, her love language was about sharing everything, even the fun things. I mean, the good news that he wasn't sharing anything that was a big secret. He was just trying to have some fun. So they got stuck in reacting back and forth. So you can imagine there was no dissolving the problem, there was no resolving it, and there was no managing it because in that moment, with James needing his privacy, Jill's looking over his shoulder, wanting to be a part of that. He felt like she wants to be a part of everything. I mean, we have a lot of things that we do together. I just want to do this by myself. So James tended to feel smothered or maybe controlled or maybe invaded by Jill's constant inquiry, request, intrusion for connection during his me time, feeling like his boundaries to do something by himself was not being respected. Anybody out there feel like James? um, and if you don't, maybe you know somebody who does. So let's look at Jill. So Jill wanting to connect. I mean, they're working all day, and then when they get home, they're doing the parenting, and they're doing the keeping the home together and that kind of thing. So anytime she has an opportunity to connect with James, just the two of them, then she does that. And that's why she was looking over his shoulder. It was her way of making an invitation to share. She wanted to share in his fun that he wanted to have by himself. So she felt rejected. She felt insecure. And since she knew what it was that he was playing his game, then she wasn't suspicious that he was doing something that was suspicious. Um, so so she didn't have that feeling, and she didn't have the feeling that he was hiding something because she knew he was playing his game. She just didn't understand why he didn't want to share it. She didn't understand that his love language was different in terms of having his individual space and individual time. And so that happens with a lot of couples. Now, sometimes it's the situation is not like James. James is innocent. He just wanted his me time to play his game. Sometimes one partner is hiding something. They are doing something suspicious, but that's not the case in this case study with this couple. So I'm just going to focus on situations where the privacy is about something innocent and something about people wanting their own special time together. So because people who are really hiding something and their spouse is looking over their shoulder, they are suspicious, because if they were hiding something, they needed privacy because they were hiding something that they didn't want their partner to know, because it was not appropriate, then they would tend to lie about it, avoid talking about it, and withdraw. And if that was the case, that um, they would see, well, James saw this too, though. They would see that Jill wanted to have that sharing of everything as snooping, as nagging, or manipulation. So if they couldn't get to a place that they could work that through, if they couldn't have the conversation to work that through, then that would create bad feelings and stress in the relationship, anxiety, depression, especially for the person who's trying to share and not feeling cared about. So that's what happens when it's not worked through. However, there's good news. There's another side of this beyond the tunnel vision. And I'm curious to know if you want to know what the good news. Anybody want to know what the good news is? Okay. So the good news is when couples have a way to have the conversation, to really get to know where the other person is coming from and what it is that they are needing in the moment, then, and they have that conversation with mutual respect and understanding and compromise, then they would find a balance. I mean, many couples have difficulty talking to each other in a way that the other person can hear when they are reactive. Because when you're reactive, it's like you're flooded with all of these emotions. You can't hear anything. You're not thinking reflectively. And so the other person wants you to hear them. It's hard to listen in a way that the other person feels heard when you're flooded with information. So Jill and James had the conversation. They had the conversation in a way that they both felt heard and understood. They got to the bottom of what each person was needing. James was able to share with Jill, he just needed that private time. He wanted to be with her. He wanted to share with her. He wanted to connect with her. He loved her. And he also needed private time by himself to do innocent things like play his games. I mean, that was part of his individuality. That was part of his independence. And he wanted to have that in the relationship. And so as he listened to Jill and heard and understood that she could respect that he needed his time, but she wanted to also, not but, and she also wanted to make sure that they had the time together, because sometimes by the time he was finishing with his me time, it was time to go to bed and they didn't have that connection time. So they were able to see this situation as an opportunity to create balance and have both. So I like this quote. I have no idea who said this, but I love it and I focus on it often. And that is, one of the greatest feelings of love is to know each other and to feel known. Knowing what it is that your partner needs at the deepest level and being respectful of what it is that you need as at the deepest level, and having the conversation about how both of you can get on the same page, whether it's about listening, wanting to feel heard, whether it's about not wanting to feel criticized, whether it's about respecting each other's boundaries. Once you have that kind of understanding, you can have a positive result, meaning resolving, or managing the problem. And so it starts with each person going within and deciding how they are going to respond instead of react. The past couple of times I talked about the prayer of serenity. God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one that I can, and the wisdom to know that that person is me. And so both Jill and James went inside and talked and figured out what they were going to do differently, what they were going to change from the inside out so that they could be both contributing to the problem. I remember the early years when Jesse and I came together, and when we had a difference of opinion. I remember the first time he said to me, when we had a disagreement, he said, first of all, we just need to get on the other side of that. And then he would say, I am taking responsibility for my part of what just happened. And the first time he said that to me, I said, oh my God. So he's saying that he's taking responsibility for his part. That means the door is open for me to take responsibility for my part. So that was a growth opportunity for me. He was already there. So he helped me to get there just by saying that to me. And so that's what the prayer of serenity is all about to me, the revised one. That's what being known is all about. Know thyself first and what it is that you need. Know your boundaries and healthy boundaries. Know your boundaries and your limits and your expectations and your needs for not only what it takes for you to feel loved and cared about, but how you're going to show up as the best version in yourself, respecting each other's boundaries, having time together and having time in your own independent space. So James and Jill wrote a poem, and I want to share it with you. So this is their poem. They said, we used to fight and argue all the time. You wanted me to share everything. I wanted space. We couldn't see eye to eye. We felt out of sync. We wondered if we were meant to be or if we should part ways. Sometimes it did get to that place with them. But then we decided to talk and listen, to understand and to respect. We realized that we had different needs, but also common goals. We learned to communicate and compromise, to balance and to protect. We found a way to meet each other's needs without losing our souls. Now we have healthy boundaries that make us feel safe and free. We share what we want to share, and we keep what we want to keep to ourselves. We respect each other's privacy. We trust each other's honesty. We love each other more than ever. Our bond is strong and deep. How about that? So my question is, what about you? Can you relate to James and Jill? Are there places in your relationship where there needs to be boundaries, healthy boundaries? Are there places where one or both of you have set healthy boundaries and the other person tends to ignore them or does not accept them? If so, are you in a space where the two of you can have a conversation about it in a way that you can relieve the tension in a way that you resolve the problem, resolve it, or manage it, like James and Jill did? If the answer is yes, I say congratulations, because that's one of the elements of lasting love for a happily ever after. Remember, boundaries don't divide us. They define how we can come closer without losing ourselves. So we can embrace ourselves, we can embrace our boundaries as bridges, not as barriers. And so if your answer was no or not yet to the question that I asked earlier, and you would like to discover how to have the conversation that James and Jill had, where they were able to get on the same page and would like support in taking that next step, I invite you to have a conversation about how you can do that. And I will put the link in, I'll put the link in the comment section. And the other part is, if you have questions about this or comments about this, feel free to put the comments or your questions in the comment area. And I want to thank all those of you who have joined me live, and I'm open to your questions, and I thank you for being here. This series has a lot of different pieces. I covered what happens when you're not listening. I covered what happens when you feel criticized, and this time I'm covering what happens when you feel that your boundaries are ignored. There's so many different issues that couples are dealing with, and I want to support couples to be able to look at all of those issues as growth opportunities, because I see with the divorce rate the way that it is and with the breakup level at the level that it is, I want couples to be able to see the growth opportunities beneath the surface of whatever it is that they are dealing with. So thank you for joining me. I'll be back next time with a next segment of What Do You Do? Overcoming Negative Reactions. Take care.